Hey, that's me. My name's Eddie, and I live here. No, not actually in this small plastic sphere, but in the small country depicted next to that dirty finger, New Zealand. I'm fortunate to also have this garage here where I like to fabricate cars and overthink embarrassing interactions I've had over the years. A while ago, and for reasons that I can't really explain, I decided to build one of these. Well, sort of. This is a Lotus 11, and I'm actually going to design and build something that looks like one, but is mechanically quite different from the original. And that the original car was a Lotus, I figured a good place to start was to get in touch with Club Lotus New Zealand. So I sent them an email, effectively asking if anyone had some Lotus 11 stuff lying around or down the back of the couch, and much to my surprise they did, which ultimately led to this awkwardly filmed video. I bought the panels of a nice gentleman named John, who I'll get to shortly, but here they are, a set of fiberglass panels, the moulds of which were taken from an original 11. I'll spare you the original commentary on this video, but the essence of it was that they look really cool, after which I go into some elite level finger pointing and waving before culminating in some awkward panel rubbing. Anyway, back to John. Here he is. He's the guy in the red race suit, not the one throwing up gang signs. John has been super helpful, even to the point of dropping the panels off to my house. And this is the 11 that he built from scratch. It's a lovely bit of work, and he has a long and storied history of car construction in New Zealand. As a starting point, John suggested I buy this book, Lotus 11 by Dennis E. Ortenberger. It's full of useful information on the 11 with detail of the car, its history, mechanical data, etc. On page 7 it also has this useful guide to contemporary fashion and how best to pair a chic pair of chinos with a timeless button-up check shirt. Note the trainers too, which give a subtle yet definite nod to the athletic prowess that lurks within. From there, I was able to acquire the services of this forearm, belonging to a small chimpanzee, that helped me leaf through to the back of the book, the most useful section. There's a couple of pages in here that detail the dimensions of an original Lotus 11 chassis, which I was able to use as a rough guide when designing my chassis. From that point, I basically just started roughing out dimensions of the chassis, suspension, general details, etc., just to try and get everything to work collectively to be what a car needs to be. I spent a lot of time on this website too, Vsusp. Anyway, I was trying out different iterations of the front and rear suspension, putting the iterations through bump and droop, yaw and roll and other R&B classics, before eventually settling on what I think should be a suspension design that works well. When sketching and bumping and drooping and bumping and grinding didn't work, I resorted to skewers and a hot glue gun to mock up something that this tired brain could better comprehend. From there, it was into SolidWorks to design the chassis to a greater and more accurate level of detail. Now, I'm no SolidWorks expert by any means, so there was a fair amount of fumbling around and a few squillion hours of watching people on YouTube indirectly belittle me. I also work with some people who are fantastic with SolidWorks, so I subjected them to daily Q&A sessions in exchange for a collection of terrible puns and, every so often, hot chips. Eventually, I got to this point here, a complete chassis design with front and rear suspension detailed, engine and drivetrain roughly positioned, and some mangled sleep habits. The intention is for this car to be road legal, and in order to be road legal, it needs to be certified by the Low Volume Vehicle Testing Authority, or LVVTA. In order to be certified, I need to first go through a design approval process with their Technical Advisory Committee, or TAC. That's a lot of acronyms, but this process is effectively detailing all the aspects of the car that are safety critical, so basically everything, so that they can review the design and advise on how to best proceed. I used 2D CAD to relive the 90s and detail the chassis and suspension, which ultimately leads to this point. A completed design approval application, which you then put into an envelope, along with the right amount of money. I included some supporting documentation. Also this chapstick that I found in the local supermarket car park. I included these 3 crystals chosen for their power and magic, and this small model of a Ford RS200, just because it's cool. Seal it up and send it on its way. A few months later I got this reply from the LVVTA advising that while they were now happily free from painfully chapped lips, There are a few small changes that they'd like to see in my design. In short, there are a few tweaks to the wishbones for greater adjustability and some strengthening and gusseting to be added to the chassis in a couple of areas. All easily done, and I was very pleased to receive this approval here, which meant that I could start on the build of the car and get away from people yelling at me on SolidWorks forums. Which leads nicely back to here, my small 6x4 metre garage and a somewhat questionable choice in shorts. See you soon for the build.